Welcome to the Cops, Criminals, and Christ podcast, where we will hear interesting stories and unique perspectives about the work of cops, the world of criminals, and how faith plays a role in the lives of both. Dale Sutherland was an undercover cop and a pastor for many years and will share interesting stories and perspectives and interview guests. I'm your host, his daughter, Kristen Crew. Come join us to learn more about these powerful forces and how they shape the lives of people just like you. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Cops, Criminals, and Christ podcast. Since we last were together for an episode, we've had some developments and things going on. Why don't you tell them what you've been up to?
Well, there was a documentary. It started 5 years ago, got contacted by a French film company, strangest story, on the internet. They emailed me. They found a story on the internet, a newspaper article, and they contacted me, said they would like to do some sort of a movie, documentary, TV, something about this story. And I thought that was very strange. Long story short, been working on it for several years. It's sold in Europe to Canal Plus, and they, big documentary film company there, recorded, did a great job, I think, with it, but they ended up doing a 4-episode series, and it just got entered into the Cannes, we're not pronouncing it right, series festival, not the film festival, the series festival, which is a month before the film festival. And so we were competing there, and it's a great honor to be submitted. So they're in the process of hoping to get it here in the U.S. as well. But it's really been a great process and been fun. They've been great to work with for sure.
Yes, I enjoyed seeing him in France on the pink carpet, not a red carpet, but a pink carpet, kind of in a different element for him. But
it's different. Yes. Very different. Very different. It was pretty weird, to be honest with you.
Yeah, there could be some exciting developments with that in the future. So stick with us, and we'll see how that releases, where it releases as a docuseries that will be coming to America, hopefully.
Yes, that's the plan.
Dream here. Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk today about cases gone wrong. Today we're going to talk about cases gone wrong. We know that you've had years of undercover experience while at the same time being a pastor, a parent, all these other things. But during your police career, we've heard some of the successful stories. And I know you, and I know some of your police stories that, you take a lot of risks and anything could happen. So I'm interested to hear not just the successes, but today, what cases have gone wrong and what that was like. What you got for us?
Oh boy, so many cases went wrong. It seems like we always talk about the cases that went right, but boy, there's a lot that didn't go so right. There was one, probably the biggest, it's hard. I got a lot of career errors, but the biggest one was this. We were involved in a conspiracy case in the United States federal court. And it was a RICO case, we called them. 7 co-defendant. We were in with the FBI, DEA, in federal court with the U.S. Attorney's Office, and we had one recording with the main guy. So I had done a bunch of the deals with other people in the 7. I had done a bunch of undercover work, buying drugs from different ones of them. It had turned into a murder because they had killed 12 people during this case. They were killing everybody. Our guys would go out and subpoena people who didn't even want to testify, and they would go and kill them just because they got subpoenaed. So it was a very dangerous thing. And so it was a serious case. And we had one deal with the main guy, an undercover deal. Another undercover did that. And I was supposed to be in charge of, in those days, we just had little micro cassette recorders. And so we had this little micro cassette recorder, set it, in it to him, went into the deal, came back out. We went to pop it out, and I didn't put a cassette in.
Oh, my.
Well, there's 2 ways to tell the story. There's a debate. One debate is that there was one, and then I had it, and that I lost it. Now, I never lose anything, so that's impossible, correct?
You can sense the sarcasm. You've lost every important thing in life.
And I drove this old beat-up car, and it's this big, that little micro cassette, so it seems reasonable you could lose something like that, I thought.
Yeah.
But anyway, I had to take the stand in federal court in front of all the defendants, 7 attorneys, and explain to them how I lost this tape.
How did that go?
So this is really weird. I expected to be killed, just, crushed on the stand. And I honestly say these things, even here, I say God's grace, because the judge in the case was the same judge. He's passed away now, but he was a big judge in history. He broke up AT&T and things that you would know about from years ago. Big, important guy. And he was rough. He was a mean judge. But whatever reason, he took to me in that trial. And I testified 7 days straight in that trial, which is a long time to testify for police undercover. And this was my big gaffe in the middle of the 7 days. And those prosecutors, they did a beautiful job of couching it in a way that the judge didn't get mad at me, which I expected him to be very unhappy. But obviously, it was a bit of an error because you couldn't prove then the drug deal, basically. Yeah. You just had the word of the undercover, which back then was better. Now it's all video and audio, or you don't do anything.
Right.
So anyway, that was a little tense.
Because he believed you, and then they got charged as though that...
Well, they got charged, as though it was accurate, but there was so much other evidence. It was just what can happen there when we make mistakes, when law enforcement makes mistakes, you can exploit that and say, well, if they made this mistake, wouldn't you think they made a lot of it? And they probably would have gone with the thing that we wouldn't trust Dale with anything serious. So obviously, you don't have to worry about the rest of the case. So, yeah, it was, man, I'm telling you, it wasn't, we talk about it now in 10 minutes, but it was months of nervousness, months of being very uncomfortable about this moment when I got to go tell everybody. The jury, too.
Right.
The jury was there, too. So
that's what I was going to ask, if that was more stressful than some of your outside of work stresses of showing up to the airport and forgetting your passport or things like that. But it sounds like this was an elongated stress.
Oh, yeah.
Dealing with your mistake.
I showed up to the airport and I had an expired passport. That happened to me. Definitely. I was on my way for an international trip. Actually, were you going with me on that?
I think so, to the Philippines.
Philippines.
Yeah, that was special.
Now, that one, yes. And that was really depressing because my brother had gotten us these great seats on business class for free. And then I blew it by not being at the airport with my passport.
I still remember
that travel.
Yeah.
Yes. Missed the case. Missed the flight. Missed the trial.
Yes.
Getting jittery.
Yes, but I can't get feeling the stress again in your body.
Yes.
But with that case, it's interesting you said it was God's grace, because we know a big part of this and the story and the documentary and all of this is your faith. And so what did that look like in that time? Is it like a pray specifically? So you pray specifically, like you were just praying that God's favor would be on you with that case, or what did that look like for you?
You know, I really believe that Jesus loves each one of us, and those who repent of their sins and meet him, make him Lord of their life, trust him for their salvation. He actually is interested in, we're literally his children, and the way I love you, he loves me 10 times. So I can talk to him about everything, and I would tell him, Jesus, you got to help me not lose this tape. Now, did that mean he found the tape? No. I had to deal with the fact, I made a mistake, but Jesus helped me to make it less painful than it could have been. Let's put it that way. And he just gives you comfort in the middle of it, even when you screw up.
Right.
There was a lot of praying for me. I would pray during undercover deals. I would pray. I can remember there was a guy who I had stopped on the street several times as a jump out, we would call it, as a plainclothes officer. And then came the time I needed to go buy drugs from that same guy. Mm-hmm. And logically, that sounds impossible. And I prayed. I can remember this. I was young. I was just starting. And I remember walking up. Now, you got to remember, this is an outside deal. So this guy is dealing with literally 500-600 customers a day.
Wow.
So he's like going $10, $10, $10. So it's not like I got to build a big relationship and he's got, no. I'm standing in line. Mm-hmm. And literally standing in line. There was a line.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. You would line up. In those days, you would just line up. When the drugs would come out, when the heroin would come out in the morning, literally the users, whatever the new word is, and you would just try to get in that line, and you'd literally stand in line. You might have 6-10 guys in line waiting, and then the dope come out, he'd say, okay, and then they start, and you say, I want 2, I want 4, I want 3, boom, 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 like that.
Help me understand how that went down with something illegal and so much cop presence in the cities.
There was, so just in my one district where I worked, there was 2.4 square mile radius. Mm-hmm. There was 30 corners like that during that time. 30.
You're talking about your district within the district.
Just my district within the district. Like the district is 67th grade. Yeah, this was the third district.
Third district.
But the fifth district, you had, and you got to imagine, it wasn't just this one guy in the corner doing this with a line. It was, so this is some, with heroin, for instance. Heroin was the big drug when I first started. And heroin, there was different brands. So they give it brands, they give it movie names. So whatever the movie that's out in the theater, they would name it that. So you name your drug. And the reason you needed a brand was because the customers wanted them to come back to you. So I remember one was Pink Panther, another was Batman, another was K9. And what happened is, if Batman was good, and what we did as cops was we had to know which one we were buying, or else we look like we're not a real user. So we would stand in line, and Batman had the best dope. Everybody be waiting for Batman. And it always came in the morning. Heroin came out in the morning, and you'd sell drugs from maybe 7 a.m. to noon, and then you're off. You're done. There's no heroin in the city after noon.
How much money are they making?
In those days, well, they would make, it depends which guy in the chain. The guy standing there making the thing, a lot of times he's just getting paid with what we call an extra 10 pack. So you get an extra 10 bags free at the end.
So he's using and selling. He's getting
a lot of those guys that were doing this were, but sometimes what we call the owner of it, which he wasn't really the owner, he would buy the package. So he would buy it in an ounce or a spoon, we would call it then, which literally was like a spoonful of heroin. And then he'd mix it up, and do you really want to know all this?
Yes.
He would take it. Okay, so here's what would happen.
Well, lights him up.
Yeah, this is good. So so he would get the heroin. He would buy the heroin from a supplier. Let's say somebody, usually a lot of times in DC, they were international or from outside the DC area. They would bring in a larger amount of heroin. And most of the guys, they couldn't afford to buy a kilogram. A kilogram of heroin might be $150,000 in those days, whereas a kilogram of cocaine in those days might be $30,000. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
But the money you can make out of heroin, I mean, sometimes they say things like you could cut it 8 times. So imagine you spend 150 times 8, you do it. They never really could cut it 8 times, I don't think, but 3 times, 4 times, 2 times. So if he would get that heroin, he would mix it with cut material, and he would put a 2 or a 4 on it, whatever. That just means is how much he's doubling it. Anyway, then he'd bag it up, which is quite a process. You can imagine all that thing, and then they go in these little teeny bags. Mm-hmm. So you're bagging it all up, and depending how small the guy is, he's got people to do it, or he does it because some of these guys are real paranoid. They don't want to lose any dope. But anyway, then he takes it out. Now, if that guy who's at the table owns it, goes on the corner, he's doing well financially. Otherwise, he's got to pay. Usually the way it worked was I'm the owner, so I never do the hand-to-hand. But I stand there to watch my product, because what happens? If you're selling heroin for me, you pocket $20, you pocket $40, you pocket a bag of dope. I mean, these are users. And if you do that, in those days, you just got beat with baseball bats. You didn't get shot. They didn't kill guys as much at the start of my career in the heroin world. It was later, as crack started to really blow up. That's when the violence escalated tremendously.
Yeah. I mean, that'd be a deterrent for me, getting beat with a baseball bat.
Yeah, but that was minor compared to what happened later. Yeah.
Okay, so you were...
Everybody thought on the street, they thought that was a reasonable punishment if you stole a guy's dope. So the other way is if you had a package, and he'd come out, let's say, with 80 or 100 bags, and he'd put them over here in the grass and then just go back to his stash all day. So the users sometimes, they'd sit and watch, and then they'd wait till the guy walked away and they'd steal the stash. Now, when you steal the stash, you're happy for 24 hours because you're using and everything. But boy, when they catch you, that's a beating. That's a beating.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yes.
Okay, I call him cliffhanger because we go different directions.
Yes.
Drop things off and keep going. But I do want to know, where was we? This clearly lights you up. Jesus and drugs. Here's the truth. But how did you learn all this? Besides experience doing it, but at the beginning, you're learning all this. Who's teaching you? How are you getting this information?
Well, the frightening thing is I didn't know anything. That's the real truth. I didn't know anything. I had just been out of Bible college. I can't say I knew the Bible well, but I spent much more time in the Bible than I ever did. Honestly, I'd never smoked marijuana. I still never have. I never used cocaine, never used heroin. And so here I am in this world. It was pretty crazy. And what I learned from really mostly was informants. Mostly informants were our trainer. The problem is they lie, informants lie. So sometimes they would give you the wrong They wouldn't give you the best intel. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we have to learn. But anyway, that's how I really learned most of my career. And then for other cops too.
Right. Yeah.
Cops that have been doing it longer.
And when you're motivated to learn, I think you're probably just absorbing so much because you want to be good at this. You're motivated to be good.
And don't forget, I'd also watch TV all the time.
Yes.
So I'd watch cop stuff and I'd watch Undercover. Yes, because you learn to look like what they think you're going to look like. That's a big key.
Yeah.
What the dope dealer thinks guys look like, that's what you had to do. So I had to watch TV to keep up with them.
So you were waiting in line. I think you left us.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, to buy from this guy, the guys were waiting in line. I know this guy not well. I never had him in my house, but I had stopped him and I'd eat him and everything. And I'm saying a lot. I just said, Jesus, please let my face look different to him than it does. Make me, not stand out. Mm-hmm. And I stood there and I was really quite nervous because I'm just buying $10 bag or something. And I'm buying a bag and the thing you're nervous about, he wouldn't kill me or something. What I didn't want was to go back to my buddies and say I couldn't make the buy. It's like, stupid, but you have to be able to, it's pride. It's exactly right. So I said, Jesus, please let me be able to do it. I was new. I wanted to impress everybody. So I got up and the Lord is gracious. Bam, bam. He sells to me and I walk off and I make the buy. And I'm walking away saying, this is insane. Nobody knows how insane this is, but the Lord, I said, thank you, Lord. This is, and there's much of that in my career where I would pray where there wasn't much of a reason why I would be able to do some of these drug deals, that the Lord just blessed me.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was another fail? Let's say another
fail?
Yeah, another.
Oh boy, we got all day. We can do these.
Do one more.
Okay. Here's fail number 2. This is a big one. We, most of the time, we didn't act like we were drug dealers. We act like we were drug buyers. Okay. But there was one kind of case we call a reversal. And cops do it where they basically are trying to show the court that X person is a drug dealer and be able to get their money as well. Some drug cops, this is all they do is reversals because you get the most money that way. So basically what you have to do is pose as a drug dealer and then call your customers. Customers come, they bring money, we arrest you once you get there. The key is the package, the kilo, obviously can never leave police hands. That's the one rule, is you have to be able to control the narcotics. So we would have to get permission from the U.S. Attorney's Office, permission from our supervisors that we were going to have a real package of real drugs out on the street. And in this case, we had an informant who knew a guy who was really a bad guy. We needed to make a case on. And he said he could call him and the guy would bring, I think it was $19,000 or $20,000 for a kilogram of cocaine. So we get the kilogram from the FBI and we say, promise you're not going to lose this. Yep. I give it to the informant because usually we keep it undercover with the drugs just to double check, make sure. But in this case, we trust the informant and we put the cocaine in the trunk of this car. We set up our van and I'm literally in the van nose to nose with the informant car where the kilogram is. Okay, follow? Mm-hmm. So they're at the KFC out there at Riggs Road on the way out of Washington. And here's this guy parked, the informant. We're here. I've got what we call the eyes, another undercover watching, and I'm laying down on the floor here behind them just doing the radio. They pull in. Now, bad guy pulls up. And I remember he had a broken down black Cadillac. He drives up. He's 4 deep, so there's 4 guys in the car, which is never good at this kind of a deal. There shouldn't be 4 people coming to a deal like this. But anyway, he gets out, and we know they're on the scene. And the last I hear, the bad guy goes, the informant and the bad guy apparently went to the trunk. But last I hear is, all I knew is they were on the scene. Next thing I hear is, they're leaving, they have the kilogram.
Oh, no.
So we're on the parking lot. I'm here still laying down. And I radio, we have FBI agents up the hill, and their job was to block the parking lot as soon as if they right. Anyway came out. But what happened was they were on a different radio channel. We didn't sync our radios, which was a really dumb mistake. And it's dumb on their part, not ours. It was always FBI fault. Never
I get that.
Never DC police. So we had it on one channel, they had on another. We say he's leaving. They say, hey, we see the guy leaving. We're not hearing each other. So basically, they decide we got to stop this. So the guy has a big Cadillac, and they come down the hill, barreling down the hill, and they ram the guy to try to stop him from getting away. And they push him over. This is how out there hit him. They push him, and he goes down into a ditch and up the hill. And I mean, he got crushed by this, and he hobbled. They kept on going somehow. I've seen this happen a lot with bad guys. They can just keep driving everything. The FBI car was done. So me and my team, we start chasing the guy. Now we're chasing this thing. Problem was, we were right on the Maryland line. So now the question is, can you cross into another state and chase a guy with a kilogram of heroin? And our supervisor's opinion at the time was, you have to stop the chase in Maryland. You can't go to Maryland because we didn't have Maryland police with us, which we should have. We did a lot of little errors. Long story short, here's the bottom line. Within 15 minutes, what looked like a really great situation, I was in the worst. We gave away a kilogram of cocaine.
They got off with it.
They got off.
Okay. I'm so stressed sitting here in a way that is aversive to trying these things. I'm like, forget it. I would never try again. That was the end of the rope. I'd send in my resignation. I'm sorry. So I'm interested that a lot of the fails, the cases gone wrong, are because you're willing to take risks. And then you're willing to be wrong. At the same time, you're willing to pray and ask God for help and praise him with whatever the outcome is. But what does that look like in maybe even like your inner self or in your outer work self of taking the risk and failing? Like, what do you either get from that or learn from it? How do you keep going with that?
I kept going because God granted me really great supervisors who covered for me. And you want to know what we really did? The FBI blamed us, and we blamed the FBI. And that kept... Stalemate was... but my poor friend at the FBI, who's still a friend, believe it or not, he's still a friend, this nice guy, he's the one who really had checked out the kilogram. So he got transferred over. He got sent to crappy work for 6 months. Now, yeah, he didn't know if he'd ever get out of it.
Why is he still your friend?
I know he shouldn't be. It was definitely my mistake. So anyway, yeah, there's that. And then MPD, we weathered the storm. But I think, the only policeman, and he thinks he's the only FBI agent in history who gave away a kilogram of cocaine. I think we're the only ones. Yeah, no, that's right. Everybody has goals and, achievements.
And you did that. No, it is helpful to hear things that didn't go well because so much was obviously, unless that's the case. The stakes are a little higher in your world. Yeah. But here you are still standing.
Yeah. Oh, you were asking about risk. I'm sorry.
Yeah. That, let's say even after that, your friend was impacted, obviously the department, the drugs, all of that. Do you just kind of learn to keep going and not overthink it or whatever? Do you just learn to live with the stress? Like, what would you say enabled you to keep trying, keep taking risks, keep failing, keep succeeding?
I joke about that night, and we weren't laughing. Believe me, we weren't laughing. I remember waiting to talk to the chief of police about this. I mean, I had to go to the chief. We're a 4,000-man department, goes all the way to the chief. So, big deal. We're still on the scene talking to the chief. That's how big of a deal it was. And the poor FBI agent, I go up, and he's in shock. He said, I remember him saying, I think I'm the first FBI agent ever to lose a kilogram of coke. So it was tense. Mm-hmm. And man, I prayed and I asked the Lord. Of course, obviously, I asked that we catch the guy. We recovered the kilo. We didn't. And I just, God was the Lord's comfort in the midst of our stupidity is a beauty of being human. And in other words, my story is not I did everything right. Mm-hmm. Not today. It's that I don't do everything right, but a gracious, merciful, loving God helps me in the midst of that kind of junk.
Yeah. So basically you sit on the grace that you're not perfect and are going to make mistakes. So you can keep going because your kind of worth or value or success isn't based in what you do or how successful it is. Is that kind of what you think?
Yeah, you're just battling to really think that way. That's good thoughts, what you're thinking there. But yes, 1 hour, I feel totally comforted in Jesus. So Lord, I'm going to be okay. And then the next hour, you're in total panic mode again. Well, when this hits the U.S. Attorney's Office, they're going to arrest me for giving away a kilo. What is this going to happen? So, yeah.
The battle of the minds.
The battle of mind, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, you saw
that's humanity. That's humanity. But the Lord is gracious. And he took me through it. And here I am talking about it years later.
Yes, with a smile. Well, I think we might need to do a whole series on this. So, but for today, let's just end with what you would say in light of all this, what you would say to a cop, what you would say to a criminal, and what you would say to a Christian in light of kind of these experiences and what you take from it. What would you say to a cop?
Well, mitigate risk as best you can. But you must take risk if you hope to catch bad guys in creative ways. There's must take risk. In other words, the guy who decides, you just got to decide, are you willing to take risks, whether you're patrolman or undercover or whatever. But in today's environment, it's especially risky for their personal. So I would say don't risk your own personal, evaluation or whatever. But as best you can, you've got to risk your safety and so on for others. That's what we do. That's what cops do, I think.
Yeah.
For the criminal, the answer is, of course, this story tells you it's so unusual that usually bad guys don't win in these things, So I would warn you, get right with Jesus before you end up in a mess like this. This was unpleasant for everybody, even the bad guys, because they knew we were after them. Then they had to lay low and they were scared to death. And you think about my stress, you should hear their stress, what that was like for them. They burned that car, they torched the car, it was a big deal to them too. So my point is, you got the criminal, the cop, we take some risks, but the main thing is to turn to Jesus while you got time. And then the Christian, I would say, boy, you must step out on the ledge, so to speak, as a Christian. And you will anyway, even if you don't want to be on the ledge. You know what I mean? Like, your kids are going to get sick, your friends, bad things, you're going to have struggles. So you're going to be on that ledge anyway. So what if we do like 2 Corinthians 1, 8 through 10, where it says, Paul said, these things happen, he lists some bad things, that I might learn not to rely on myself, but on God who raised the dead. Maybe this happened that I might prove to myself that I'm an idiot and I shouldn't be thinking I got my career in my hands,
Mm-hmm.
And then I might learn to rely on the Lord to get me out of these things. So maybe the Lord could do that, but you've got to be on the ledge in order to experience that.
Yeah. So you think both the cop and the Christian and everyone needs to take some risk. Life is risky anyway. So
it's full of unknowns. And you got to relying on God. And for the criminal, is to rely on God now. Trust him. You can get out of that life. You don't have to rely on that. You can get out of that. You can rely on the Lord Jesus, and he'll help you through this.
Yeah. So in your failures and successes, rely on the Lord. Great place to end. Thank you. We're coming back next time to talk more about this and different related topics with his undercover career. So come back next time. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. If you enjoyed this discussion and the content we have, we encourage you to hit subscribe, hit that notification bell, follow along on all our social channels at The Undercover Pastor, and then we can keep bringing you these stories, insights, and kind of the combination of law enforcement and faith and how it combines in Dale's life. So make sure to follow along and we'll see you next time.